I'm a multilingual learner specialist, which means that I'm supporting students in their English language development, and I'm always trying to find ways to get them to engage in rigorous grade level content that is in English. And it's really hard to do, but I've been using this new tool called Colleague AI for my lesson preparation, specifically for the adaptation of content. This here is an example of what was a very complex text. We'll look at it later, and I modified it to meet my students' needs where they are based on their language proficiency. This is a practice that's rooted in research. This is Pearson's Making Content Comprehensible. This is the SIOP model. If you're a teacher like me, maybe you've heard this before, but essentially this is a 20-year body of research that's demonstrated to support students. They say we must find ways to make the text and other resources accessible without watering down the content. And there's a couple ways that we can do that. One of which is we can take text, we can create summaries as an aid for, quote, pre-reading, during reading, and or post-reading. But what this example is text elaboration, which is a means to rewrite portions of the text, being sure to maintain critical content information. This used to be really, really hard, and it is not hard anymore, and I can't wait to show you what is possible. And so to get started, I'm going to take a chain of reasoning approach, which means that I start with big ideas, and then I narrow it down as I converse with the AI. And I'm going to scroll down, and here we see many of Colleague AI's tools, and it's amazing how many tools there are that I could use. And in this case, I'm going to use the Generating Tasks with Different Rigor tool. And when I click on that, it will launch, and it will take a second to explain what this tool is for. And generating tasks with different rigor can focus on Bloom's taxonomy, or it can focus on depth of knowledge. But in my case, I'm really excited about taking an existing task and modifying that. And so I'm going to submit that prompt that I mentioned earlier. Big picture, who are my students? What are their language needs? What are my learning objectives? And I can see that it's building context here for me. And so I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to talk about the content that I'm trying to work with, and maybe I'll pop in the pedagogical strategies that I would like to use as well until I get to a point where I'm feeling really good. And then I'm going to specify the clear content area objectives that we're all aiming for. Specifically, please maintain the virtue and emphasis placed on the following literary devices: imagery, symbolism, setting, and theme. Additionally, maintain the elements of horror specific to the genre. And so that's what all students are reaching for while we interact with the text. And in this case, that text is the Yellow Wallpaper, which was written in 1890. And the language reflects this. And we can see that when the yellow wallpaper itself is described as dull enough to confuse the eye in the following, pronounced enough to constantly irritate and provoke study. And when you follow the lame, uncertain curves for a little distance, they suddenly commit suicide. And that's really hard for most learners, and for multilingual learners, it's probably inaccessible. There's too much going on there. So I'm going to take this text and I'm going to attach it to the AI, and I'm going to submit that with the clear and concise prompt that I wrote. And this is what it came up with. In fact, I'm actually really excited about this. Here's that same description of the yellow wallpaper as a repellent, almost revolting yellow, strangely faded by the slow turning sunlight. The pattern is tortuous and confusing and has sprawling, flamboyant curves that plunge off in outrageous angles. And you might be thinking, that's still hard. Yes, it is still hard. And that's the point. Our students can do hard things. But what I'm really excited about is that it was consistent in maintaining vocabulary across both texts, and that vocabulary can be used and scaffolded to support knowledge around imagery, setting, theme, whatever. And that's really, really cool. And so adapting content is one way that I'm using Colleague AI to prepare my lessons. And the next step is probably continue with research-based practices, specifically in creating supplementary materials, which could be audio, or in this case, it's going to be a visual that helps to communicate a really abstract and difficult concept. And so I'm excited to show you how I did that as well. Please stay posted.